Hello and welcome to the Film Focus Online podcast. On today's show, we are talking about the films of the 21st century. I am your host, Elliot Lyons, and joining me today is Alex Gilson. How are we doing?
I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very well, very well. So, this past week, the New York Times has released their 100 best films of the 21st century. For anyone that hasn't seen this list, it's a list made up from 500 filmmakers, stars, and influential film fans, whatever that may mean. So you brought this idea to me about talking about this list, and so what were your first initial reactions when you sort of saw it?
Yeah, I mean, I love a list. I think that lists are really interesting because you kind of get into that conversation. I mean, nothing in film can really be, in terms of like people's tastes on film, nothing can really be objective. You can't. I mean, maybe you can try and be objective, but your biases and your personal tastes are always going to kind of come in to the decisions that you make when it comes to like you saying these are my favorite films of this particular genre, era, or blah blah
Yeah.
blah, whatever. And I'm just very interested, and I think because it's crazy to think that we're 25 years into the 21st century now, and I feel like it feels like a good time to kind of take stock of the past quarter
Yeah,
of a century and kind of see what has really made waves, what has kind of stuck in the cultural zeitgeist and kind of made its mark in the film canon, so to speak. So yeah, I was intrigued. But I think, as is the case with any list like this that kind of comes out, I was quite dubious because I always know that certain things
yeah.
are going to get omitted when they don't deserve to, I
They
think.
shouldn't, yeah. Yeah, I guess it all depends on. I mean, a group of 500 people is quite a lot, but when they're all within that same sort of world, you're always going to get similarities throughout, I imagine. Um,
Yeah, no, definitely.
we're also going to talk about the viewers list, which
Yes.
you've actually gone through and seen sort of differences, and that was 1,000 people. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Something
Yeah.
along those. So that is obviously a much wider scope, and all of these people would have chosen their top 10, and that's how they've sort of comprised this list. So, what stood out to you about the list that you might want to sort of talk about?
Um well, I think generally the worst thing is, again, with lists that like comprise of so many films, because 100 is like a lot of films, obviously. You kind of worry, like, one of the things that you could do on the actual article that was posted was you could click if you'd seen it or not. And I did that, and I have actually only seen 56 of
Okay.
those 100 films, which I think is like a bit bad, really. There's
Yeah.
some quite like notable omissions from my film viewing kind of whatever. But I mean, I've still seen, I've seen 56 of them. So
I mean, that's probably more than a lot of people that will sort of read this list.
yeah, yeah,
Even some of our closest colleagues and friends and stuff, they'd probably be around about the same. 100 films is a fair amount.
yeah. I mean, I think my view of it's been skewed because I've seen people posting pictures and they've seen like 97, 98 of
Yeah.
them. I even saw somebody that had, that had seen all of them, and I was like, what? Like, how is that even anyway? But yeah, so of the 56 I've seen, because I feel like I can't fairly judge the other ones that I've not seen. I can't be like, why have they put let me have a look. Like, oh, why have they put the Hurt Locker on there?
Yeah.
Because it's because I can't. I've not seen it, so I yeah. Anyway, but from the ones I've seen, I do think that there is a generally decent mix, and I feel like because
Hmm.
I've picked 10 of my favorite from the list, and I feel like I could have picked more where I've kind of been
Hmm.
like these could kind of go into my top 10. So I think like first initial kind of impressions of like good like inclusions,
Hmm.
Parasite.
Yeah,
I think, I mean, obviously that's number one, and I'm not surprised at
it's
that
yeah,
in any kind of
it's
way.
one of mine that I was glad to see on there, and it's obviously number one, but if it wasn't on there, then it would have been a bit of a farce, I think.
Yeah, I think very, very odd indeed. Moonlight as well.
Hmm.
Very happy to see that. I think, um, again, not sure how I would have felt if that was omitted. There are a few films like that though that have been omitted that I'm a bit like,
Right, okay.
but we'll get onto that later.
Yeah, yeah.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Hmm.
Think, yeah, very happy with that. Um, Phantom Thread as well. I haven't seen loads of Paul Thomas Anderson films, but that one specifically is absolute masterpiece, and
Because
I
there's a few of
love that.
his quite high up, isn't there? Which also doesn't
Yes,
surprise me.
yeah, no, absolutely not. Spirited Away, of course. I mean, it is the. We'll talk more about animation later
Yeah,
on.
we're going to get into animation because it's a
I'll get
really
on my
interesting look at
soapbox.
animation.
Yeah, get on my soapbox about it. But that was the highest ranked animation, which
Hmm.
again comes as no surprise to anybody. I don't think it's kind of the. It is obviously Spirited Away is incredible. One of the best animated movies of all time. That cannot be challenged. I don't think. But it does seem to be the kind of if we put Spirited Away in, it means that we've
We kind of don't have to look at anything else.
exactly
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, Brokeback Mountain. I was
Hmm.
honestly like, I wouldn't say I was shocked that I saw it on there, but I'm glad that it's there. I'm very happy about that.
Where did
Um,
that hit on the list? What number? Do you know?
I don't know, but it was. I don't think it was that low actually. I think it must have been top 20.
17, yeah. 17 it was.
17. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's actually pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
Um, After Sun as well, I think. I think it's interesting to see how many films from like the past 5 years have made it onto the list because it's
I've
kind
got a
of
couple sort of jotted down, sort of the recent films
yeah
that are on there, and they're all quite that artsy sort of films that probably not many people have actually seen. So
yeah
it's good to have
I
them on there.
yeah, and I think what's interesting is kind of like where do you kind of draw the line on films that have kind of just come out and are still kind
Yeah.
of making their mark, and people are still kind of having those very early conversations about them. Like
Hmm.
there's a difference between After Sun and Spirited Away, because Spirited Away came out in like 2001 or whatever, and I think it's interesting to see what kinds of those films from the
You've
recent
had
years kind
sort of
of get onto the
24
list.
years to sit on it. It's a little bit different to,
Yeah,
only seen it 2 years ago and not being able to revisit it, or you wouldn't have really revisited it
yeah,
in that sort of
and
space.
I think what obviously that says a lot about the kind of the strength of these specific films, and how kind of memorable they are, that
Yeah,
they've kind
definitely.
of beaten out other kind of films that people have been able to sit on more. And then the last couple, Memories of Murder. I don't know if another Bong Joon Ho film got on or if it was just that and Parasite.
It was just the two
Yeah. Okay.
at
Yeah.
number
So
99 and number one.
number 99, number one. Yeah. So kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. I feel like if any Bong Joon Ho films were going to make it on, it was probably going to be those
Hmm.
two.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Memories of Murder is probably for me is second best film, so it
Yes.
kind of
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. And then Call Me by Your Name, and then finally Little Miss Sunshine, which
Nice.
I adore. So yeah, so I'm very happy
Lovely.
with those.
So when I sort of went through the list, um, it struck out to me straight away that luckily, well, not luckily, but most of my sort of films that I love watching, I enjoy revisiting, they sort of made it on there. These are sort of films that when someone asks me, "Oh, what should I watch?" I'll always sort of say to right, you've got to kind of watch this. Parasite, obviously, as you spoke about, for. Moneyball was one that I was really happy to see on there. I'm not a baseball fan whatsoever, but Moneyball I absolutely love. Inglourious Bastards. I know there was a sort of a few Quentin Tarantino films on there,
Yeah.
but I think that's by far my favorite of his, and probably quite a lot of people's favorites.
I think it's the one that's highest on the list as well, if I'm
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. I know. I saw
So there's Kill
Once
Bill.
Upon a Time in Hollywood's there. Kill Bill's on
Yeah.
there. Inglorious was 14, I think, on the list. Um, what else did I have? The Dark Knight. There's not much comic book sort of representation on here. I think the only Marvel film to make it on was Black Panther, which
Yes,
doesn't surprise
correct.
me.
Hmm.
But The Dark Knight was on there. Going back to animation, my favorite Pixar film was on there, Ratatouille.
Yep.
So I always feel like Ratatouille gets forgotten about, and then these kind of things remind me that actually there's a lot more people out there that enjoy it as much as I
Yep.
do.
And best
Uh,
Disneyland ride as well. So,
is it?
yep.
um, Spotlight is another one that I'd recommend to people. Just great sort of what you call journalist drama.
Yep.
Uh, one of the Lord of the Rings. I didn't expect all three of them to get on there, but I'm glad it was represented on there as one of my favorite franchises.
Of
Um,
course.
and probably Gladiator. Gladiator is one that I love to revisit. Can't say I'd say the same about the second one. Although I enjoyed the second one, I'm not gonna go back to it as I would the original, but I could stick that on sort of any day of the week. And so yeah, they're the sort of ones that stood out to me that I was sort of glad were on there. They're the sort of films that I love going back to, like to tell people to watch, and normally get a generally good reception when I do tell them to watch those films.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So, shall we then talk a little bit about the animation as we've touched on it?
Yeah. No, let's do it.
So, what I noticed, you had Spirited Away at number 9, which is great because
Hmm.
it's a fantastic piece of animation. One of the, like you said, one of the best ever. Um, and then, other than that, we had 3 Pixar films, and that was the only animation to make the list.
Yes. Yeah. So it was Wally, Up, and Ratatouille. If
Ratatouille.
I'm,
Yeah.
yeah, yes, and I kind of knew that this was gonna happen because they released when they released it, they did it kind of 20 films at a time.
Right.
And when they released the first 20, and I think Ratatouille may have, I don't know if it was in the second section actually.
It's quite high up. It is quite there up the top somewhere, I think.
But anyway, I just had that kind of thing. And I mean, if you've listened to this podcast before, if you know the kind of things that I write on the site, you know that I'm a massive lover of animation. It's one of my favorite art forms. I have adored and will always adore animation,
You and
and
me both.
I know that when it comes to things like this, it always gets paid dust, complete dust. And like and this isn't like kind of to say that the films that did get on there don't deserve to be on
Hmm.
there, because they're all great films within their own right. I think Wally probably is one of the best Pixar films, if I'm honest. Like, that's just a fact for me, at least. But it's just not representative of the length and breadth of animated films that we have had in the 21st century. And I know that this isn't meant to be like the be all and end all. And again, going back to the beginning, you can't be objective with
Hmm.
things like this. But I would just like to see a bit more variety than just three Pixar films and a Studio
Yeah,
Ghibli.
uh,
It,
I think that's what stuck out to me was okay. They put 4 films on there, which I kind of expected from animation, but there was no like stop motion. There was no alternative animation other than the top animation studio in the world plus a legendary animation studio. It's very safe. It felt very safe.
yeah, and I just think, I mean, wait, let me just check. I'm not. I might be wrong because I thought that Mary and Max might have got on there, but I don't think it did. I'm just making sure that I'm not like
I can't
gaslighting
remember
myself.
seeing.
No, no, I don't think so. Yeah, it would be because I haven't actually seen Mary and Max, but I know that a lot of people hold it in
Mhm.
quite high regard. And I mean, I watched Adam Elliott's most recent film, Memoirs of a Snail, and that is also
Yeah, yeah.
very, very good. But yeah, I think for me, the most egregious omission was that of a stop motion animated film. I think that kind of art form has just developed so exponentially in the past 25 years, and there have been so many incredible films. I mean, to be fair, there is one that makes it onto the readers list, which we'll talk about later on. Um, but I just, yeah, I mean, I can kind of see why they didn't put Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were Rabbit on there, despite the
Hmm.
fact that it is one of the best films of the 21st century, and it won best animated feature. I mean, I wish it won best picture. It should have done. Um, yeah, but I can kind of get that. But when it comes to like Leica, who have produced some of the most gorgeous, breathtaking stop motion animation that in recent memory. I mean, Kubo and the Two Strings alone is just I'm just like I can't understand why that hasn't made it or any of those films. I mean, Coraline, um, Paranorman, even Missing Link is wonderful as well in its own right, and yeah, it makes me a bit sad.
Yeah. Was there was there many more animation films on the readers list than the sort of four, or was that again kind of forgotten about?
I think there's
Three extras.
three more. Yeah. Oh no,
Okay.
four. There's four. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
yeah,
that makes it a little bit more. That's looking at about sort of eight. No, it's 8%, isn't it? Of the. I tried to do some
yeah.
really quick maths and then realised it was 8 out of 100.
um, I also think as well that like when it comes, I mean, where's Shrek? But
Making number
like,
five, Alex. That's what he's doing. He's busy.
yeah. Well, I honestly, I think I was that. I think in terms of like general animation, that and also kind of Toy Story as well, because I feel like that's kind of. I know that goes back to Pixar, but also I feel like that's kind of one of the most.
What would they? They'd
Well,
have to put
not
in
Toy
Toy Story 3, wouldn't they?
3. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Four
So
wouldn't have
Toy Story.
made it.
Wait, but I feel like people regard Toy Story 3 as like one of the best
Well,
Toy Story films.
I had another Pixar film actually. I'll go. There's two films that I sort of noted animation wise. Another Pixar film, Inside Out, which I
Yeah.
know is held in high regards by a lot of people, higher than
Hmm.
probably Up and Ratatouille than by a lot of people. Another one was
Yeah.
Into the Spider-Verse
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Well,
I
we
was
might talk
surprised
about that.
got left out. Ah,
We might talk about that in a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely one. I think, but even just kind of crossing over to normal Disney animation, I feel like
mhm.
Princess and the Frog, is really strong one that's kind of missed out. I mean, Moana, Wreck It Ralph, even Encanto. Like if you kind of consider
Yeah, yeah.
these films that are more recent, I don't know. It's just a bit, yeah, it's just a bit odd for
I
me.
think it's. I think for our fans of animation like us, we look at it and go, why aren't these films on there? But I
Mm,
do think there are a lot of film fans that don't give animation a chance. Um,
no, it's true. Yeah.
and for me, I grew up with animation as I mean, a lot of people did, and it stuck with me throughout my life. But a lot of people would have sort of drifted away from it, and I think that's just a general. You're either a fan of it. There's no sort of in between where you
Yeah.
can't just sit there and you're either a fan of it or you're not, which is a shame. But at least we got some representation on there.
Yeah.
Um, so we were talking a little bit about recent films that made the list.
Mm.
What recent films did you sort of
Yeah. So I think like
know?
if we're kind of talking like the past 5 years,
Hmm.
um, you know, I mentioned After Sun. and also Parasite and Portrait of a Lady on Fire was 2019. I think the most recent film on the list, if I'm correct, is Oppenheimer.
Yeah, could be. That was what, 2023, so 2 years ago.
Yeah, is Oppenheimer? Yeah, Oppenheimer is on the list. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, it's about midway, I think.
Oh, and Tar as well.
Okay, that might have been the same year then as well, wasn't it? Tar.
I think Tar was the year before, but yeah, kind of similar.
Okay.
Worst Person in the World, that came out like 2021, I
Hmm.
think.
I
The
had
Zone of Interest as well.
past lives
Yes, Past
that
Lives,
came
yeah.
out. Zone of Interest was actually very high on the list. I think it's about number
Very
11 or
high.
12,
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
along
yeah.
those lines,
I
which is
think,
interesting.
yeah, that I think the thing about Zone of Interest is that as a film, it has a kind of a lot to say about um current events and
Hmm.
kind of where we are as a society at the moment. So I feel like that's kind of part of the reason why it's stuck into people's minds
Yeah, I was going
as
to
like
say
a very
that.
strong film. Yeah,
And because it's a new film, I suppose that's, of their 10 films, if they're thinking about films in general, if that's something that's stuck with them, then they're gonna gravitate towards that sort of straight away, aren't they?
100%. Yeah. And then I think if I was to look, Uncut Gems also was on there,
Hmm.
and also, oh, what was I looking at? Oh, The
Uh,
Favorite.
so Everything Everywhere All at Once also made an appearance.
Yes, yes, it did as well. Yeah,
A lot of
and
I think a lot of films there that have obviously had Oscar
yeah,
wins or potential or stuff like that. So I imagine that a lot of these people that were make this list, a lot of them are involved in the Academy anyway.
yeah, I
So
imagine probably so. Yeah,
there's quite a lot of crossover.
yeah, definitely.
Cool. So do you want to go through some of your omissions on the list before we
Yes,
get
yeah,
into talking about we'll talk about the readers list, but we'll have a look at some omissions from the main one first. Let's go through some.
yeah. So I think for me, my like top two emissions were La La Land. I get
Mhm.
that they put Whiplash on there, but also, and Whiplash is great, but it's not La La Land by any stretch of the imagination. And then Little Women. Greta Gerwig is on there a couple of times. I mean, she didn't direct Frances Ha, but she's in that. And Lady Bird is also on there. But again, Little Women seems like Little Women was kind of another one that was very underserved by awards season. And it has been underserved here also.
So I noted a sort of couple Ex Machina, which
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
think
Yeah.
there's any Alex Garland on this list at all,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
which does surprise me a little. The other one, only I think because of its box office success and because Jim Cameron's behind it, but Avatar didn't make the 100.
Yeah, that damn, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy. Yeah.
Um, that to me is baffling just because of how it almost changed the way we sort of look at cinema and the
Mm,
spectacle of cinema, and it's now going on to sort of 5 films, and the fact that James Cameron is such a big name. You see people like Christopher Nolan having sort of 4 entries, the likes of Quentin Tarantino having 3.
yeah.
It's not because he's a big name that should be in there, but I'm just surprised that it wasn't included.
Yeah. No, that's one I really hadn't thought of, which is yeah, quite interesting. Um I also put down Knives Out.
Mhm.
Feel
Okay.
like that was a very popular one. You'll kind of find that when we start talking about the readers list that there's a few of these ones on there. Um I also think that uh Get Out was on there, but I also feel like Us and Nope
No.
could
Yeah.
have been there. And then again, the favorite is on there, but no other Yorgos Lanthimos film is on there from my knowledge. And I mean, I think The Lobster is a very very good film. Even Killing of a Sacred Deer, um, it is really good too. So I think that was quite an interesting omission.
Shall we move now on to the readers list and the sort of differences between them? This is
Yeah,
where I'm going to sort of hand over to you massively because you've
of
gone through
course.
them and sort of
Kind
compared
of
the
have a bit of
two.
an idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, there's I think I counted 28 or maybe 30 films or so that are different. Which is interesting that there is so much crossover between the two lists. I'd kind of half thought that there would be more kind of different films, but alas. So I mean, first off, all of the Lord of the Rings films are on there rather than just
Yeah.
Fellowship, which I think is not in the least bit surprising.
No,
Um,
but the problem with that is, I suppose that takes up quite a big chunk of you should be able to just put them as one because at the end of the day, I
yeah,
know they're
no, true.
three films, but yeah,
Very true. No, very
cool.
true. Um, La La Land is on there. So I am, and also Little Women. So I'm kind of vindicated in some sense that that my peers are
200,000 people are more right than 500.
yes. Um, Dune 1 and 2 are both on there
See,
at various different spots. Yeah.
one being on there doesn't surprise me, but them both being on there does a little bit.
And would it surprise you more if I said that Dune Part 2 is higher up
Yeah,
than Dune
yeah,
Part 1?
that does surprise me a lot.
Um, you mentioned it before, Spider-Verse.
Mhm.
Into the Spider-Verse, the first one that's on there. Other animations that made it are The Incredibles.
See, I find that's a weird one.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, a little bit. What other were the other three Pixar films that we mentioned that were in the main list? Were they also on there?
I think they were, yes. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know anyone that I like The Incredibles, but I don't know anyone that sort of will rave about it, saying, it's one of their favorites.
Oh, see, I'm kind of the opposite on that. I feel like there's loads of people I know that are like, "Oh, The Incredibles is amazing." Wally is on there. Um, I'm not sure about Up and Ratatouille. I don't think they are. Oh no,
Bit
yeah,
of a
no, they're not.
travesty.
So we've actually
200,000 people are wrong.
so instead of yeah, so we've had a few animated films come out to be replaced by others,
To be
and
replaced by others. Okay.
the others that make it on. So like I said, yeah, so you've got Spider Verse, Into the Spider Verse, you've got The Incredibles, Howl's Moving Castle. So again, just absolute variety. We're definitely branching out further from Pixar and Studio Ghibli. And then the only stop motion animation to make it on the list was Fantastic Mr. Fox, which
I forgot
I'm
about
happy
that.
about. Yeah,
Because
see,
I did note that there were a few Wes Anderson. I noticed that there were actually two in
yes,
a row. I think it was
Royal
Royal
Tenenbaums.
Tenenbaums and Grand Budapest on the main
Yes,
list.
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't even think about Fantastic Mr. Fox. That's
yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, so that
Mm.
I think I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm very kind of like, oh, there should definitely be more stop motion animation. But I think if we have to say, oh, if there's one film that can act as a representative of the art form, then Fantastic Mr. Fox is
That's probably
more
got to be
than
it.
good enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree.
Um. Right. Yeah. So that's the animations. Then Knives Out is also on there, which again, very happy about.
Did we have
Um.
much streaming representation across both lists? Because obviously streaming again is probably
I.
last 10 years they've been in the
Yeah.
public eye more.
But no, nothing. Yeah, no.
Nothing
I'm
really.
looking at the list now. Can't see any specifically that started off as streaming films. And again, like obviously we've gone through the main list, and I don't think any of them are either. So,
Yeah.
um, what else have we got? There's not many that are kind of like paired up now. It's kind of a lot of different ones, kind of split about. Oh, there is another one that another kind of pair of films. That's Hereditary and Midsummer. Which again, I feel like interesting that they were omitted from the main list because I feel like people have raved about them for a very long time, and I love those
I think
films.
especially Midsummer, because I think Midsummer,
Yeah,
Hereditary obviously is a horror, whereas Midsummer is a little bit more. I think it probably has a bigger can have a bigger audience because it's not like scare
Y-
scare kind of horror. But
yeah.
yes, yeah,
It's more kind of yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's not. They're very different films. Yeah. Um, Robert Eggers made it on there with The Lighthouse,
okay, yeah.
and
Again, a little bit of
then
recency sort of look,
yeah.
that being in people's
Oh,
mind, I think.
yeah. So if we want to carry on with that kind of idea, obviously we've had the Dune films. You've also got Barbie is on there.
Hmm.
Oppenheimer is also on the list as well on the readers list.
They should have
Um,
one spot between them.
um, then in terms of other recent ones, you've also got Perfect Days, which I still haven't seen, but I've heard very good things about.
Is that the
Um,
Korean? Is it a Korean film?
yes,
Yeah,
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 yeah. Killers of the Flower Moon,
yeah. Okay, yeah.
The Holdovers, and
I've
then
been
the
meaning to
most.
watch The Holdovers for so long, and I keep going
It's
to do
very,
it.
it's very good. It's very good. You won't regret it. And then I would say that the most recent film that has made it onto the readers list is Sinners.
So that is, few months old. So obviously that's stuck with people and
Yeah,
really jumped up in their estimations if they're going to look at
yeah,
it as one of their favorite films in the last 25 years. That's really interesting.
yeah. No, definitely. And then there's a few more. Uh, Try and kind of get through them. Uh, Mean Girls got on there, which I think
Hmm.
again definitely deserves a place. Uh, The Prestige, so yet another Nolan
Oh,
film makes
I
it.
love The Prestige. So many
Um,
films that probably could have made it on there.
there really are, yeah. There's also Blade Runner 2049, Pride and Prejudice, Django Unchained also made it on there, and then finally the only other one that kind of really stood out in terms of the ones that are different is that another comic book film made it on there, and that's
Hmm.
Endgame.
I was going to ask if there's any more Marvel because it would have surprised me if there wasn't, whether it was just Infinity War or Endgame. I would have been shocked if another Avengers film hadn't been on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a dead 100 there. So
Okay, so only
yeah,
so only just made it in then.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
but still there nonetheless.
I wonder if
And yeah,
that's I wonder if that's due to the recent sort of success of Marvel. People are a bit sick of it, so they've kind of put it to the back of their mind.
yep, I think that might be the case. Yep, no, it's definitely kind of losing popularity
Hmm.
every day, isn't it? So yeah,
Lovely. So, is there anything else you'd like to say about either of these lists? Is there anything else you'd have liked to see on it, or
I
what do you sort of
think
think about overall?
we kind of talked about animation, but I think comedy
Hmm.
is another very interesting
Hmm.
kind of genre to look at in terms of kind of what has been included and kind of certain things that maybe haven't. I mean, I know Superbad is on there. I've not seen Superbad, but I mean, I kind of understand it's the blueprint almost of like modern comedy films.
I think it was Dead 100 as well, though. It was
Mm,
right up the top.
not
Anchorman,
really.
I think, was in there.
And yeah, so the first Anchorman made it on there,
Hmm.
and then also Borat for some reason.
Yeah, so you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, and I'm kind of trying to rack my brains. I don't know, maybe if people knew about this list being formulated and Sacha Baron Cohen has like given lots of money to bribe people
Hmm.
to no allegedly I'm going to say so I don't get sued into oblivion. But yeah, I kind
It's
of
quite
look at
high up
Bor
as well, wasn't it?
yeah, like top 50, I'm pretty sure.
Just having a quick scroll through now. And it was 53,
Which is crazy to me
actually.
because even if you just look at like because if you even take away the fact that it's taken a space from La La Land or Little Women
Hmm.
or like Knives Out or a film like that, you just look at like comedy films that it's taken a spot from, like Mean Girls or like I was thinking before, like Easy A. I think is
Hmm.
probably one of the best comedy films of the 21st century. I feel like that could have very easily been on the list. Also, a more recent one, but Booksmart, I think, is so hilarious, so funny, and just 10 times better than Borat. And I just don't. Yeah, I think a very you would call it a sneak, wouldn't you? Like it's
Yeah,
definitely
I think comedy is in a little bit of a weird place within film. You look at films that were comedy films that were made 20 years ago, and a lot of them couldn't or wouldn't be made now.
true.
And
Yeah,
I
no,
wonder whether that kind of has an effect. I mean, it must do because people probably revisit them and go, oh, wait, hang on, that's maybe not as good as what I thought when I
no,
watched
very
it
true.
that long ago. But yeah, Borat was definitely one that I noticed being a bit weird. Did have a look
Yeah.
through because you can actually see some of the individual lists of the people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, people don't sue me for this. There were a few people that put their own movies on their list.
Which honestly, I don't blame. I mean, I know you said that Rachel Ziegler put
Yeah,
West Side Story
West
on
Side
there. Fair
Story on
enough.
there,
Valid.
which
But
which
honestly,
which is fine. I think even Moonlight, which should be on there, obviously, but Barry Jenkins put that on himself,
yeah. And he should have put If Beale Street Could Talk on there as
which
well.
is
Of course.
it's just like, but you'd like to look at it from a non-objective point of view more than anything. There was one film that did scream out to me, and that was Team America: World Police was voted by someone,
Do you
which
know who?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to go through it again, but honestly, I saw saw that, and I was slightly
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah. Well, it's not a surprise that it didn't make it onto the top 100. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So, anything more?
I think we're kind of all there. I would kind of say that like obviously there were a few directors that kind of made it on multiple times. Obviously the person who got the most films on there of theirs was Christopher Nolan, which although I don't think is surprising, I don't think I would personally say like I wouldn't yeah, I'm not
How
sure.
many did he
It's
have?
an odd one.
About
Five
five?
altogether. Yeah.
That
So
was
he had
Oppenheimer,
yeah,
Inception,
yeah,
uh,
Memento,
Oh, yeah, there was two quite close together, weren't they? Interstellar,
and then
that was on there,
Interstellar and The Dark Knight.
and The Dark Knight. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I think that's quite an interesting thing to look at. I mean, like even obviously Tarantino got like three on there, I think, and yeah, I think it's interesting to see who kind of overlaps in that sense. And do I mean, do you think that Christopher Nolan kind of deserves to be there 5 times, or I don't know? It's an interesting one.
I, I, I'd say, I personally enjoy his movies, but I think, I suppose the problem is when you do something like this, you can't control
Of
the
course,
films that
yeah,
you can't say, oh, there's only going to be three of this person's films on there or something. It'd be great to see. I think there's a couple there that deserve to be on there, but I don't think all five of them should be. But some people like Inception, some people like Interstellar. It's kind of like
yeah. So there's going to be that kind of
it's going
overlap.
to be a
Yeah, I
mixture.
suppose. Yeah,
It's
no,
difficult to
very
sort of
true.
manage. I mean, I thought about doing. We've done top 50s in the past between us as a team.
Yeah,
Um, and it'd be very interesting to see sort of what we'd come up with in that sort of sense because
yeah, that would be so fun.
you can't
Well, that's
control it.
actually. Did you? Because I remember that when the article came out, you could kind of do your own, and I
Hmm.
did my own. So I don't know
Go through
if
it.
we want to.
Yeah, go through your list, your 10.
Well, I so there's a lot of overlap actually with the actual list, which is kind of very against everything that I've been saying. So there's Spirited Away, um, Phantom Thread, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Moonlight, La La Land, Little Women, After Sun, um, Arrival, also,
Yep. Okay, yeah. Yeah,
um, and then Inside Out and Shrek. So pretty predictable. But
yeah. You've got your
yeah,
20% of animation in there.
exactly.
30%, sorry. You had Spirited Away as well,
Yeah,
didn't you?
yes, 30%. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's cool. I obviously we went through some that stood out for me earlier. Um, Ex Machina, like I said, could have made it in there for me. Into the Spider-Verse probably could have made it in there for me. How to Train Your Dragon, the
Yeah.
first one. Um, that's probably one of my favorite animations. But overall, I think personally for me it was a solid 100 that I enjoyed reading through, and there's definitely a few in there that I haven't seen. Bit like you, that I'm now going to go, okay, well, that it's worth going to visit. Something that I might put off or along those lines. Is there any that stick out to you that you're going to go and
Yes.
visit almost sort of immediately?
Yeah, so I think of the ones that I've not seen, have been meaning to for so long, but Mad Max Fury Road, I'm going to get to that.
Yeah, oh no,
That's a promise here right
that's
now.
amazing. Yeah.
And then There Will Be Blood. Also, I hear that that is one of Paul Thomas Anderson's best. Yeah, definitely want to get to that quite quickly. Mulholland Drive as well. I've
Yeah,
seen
that,
a woeful amount of David Lynch films, unfortunately. So I'm trying to change that.
it's on my list
Yeah,
as well of films that I need to see.
yeah, and then also Amelie. I've not seen Amelie.
Mhm.
That's going to be really good. And then Andrea Arnold's Fish Tank as well. I watched Andrea Arnold's new film at London Film Festival last year, Bird, which I really loved. So I really would love to kind of go back to kind of when she was first starting out and see what that's like.
Awesome. So I think for me, like you said, Mulholland Drive, that's something for me that I haven't seen. Within the sort of top 30, there's not sort of too many that I haven't visited. I'd like to revisit a couple, likes of Brokeback Mountain I've not seen in a long time. Children of Men I watched recently, which was a great rewatch for me. What else do I need to see? Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. I should probably visit that. But I think there's
That's
only sort of
very
those
good.
two
Yeah.
in the top 10 that I had. Oh, In the Mood for Love. Have you seen In the Mood for Love?
No, and again, that's another one I've been meaning to watch for so long. But it's never on anything.
No.
Um, and I loathe to rent films off like Amazon and stuff. It's just annoying. Um,
Don't want to give
I
them
kind
more
of try
money.
and well, exactly. I kind of try and wait to see if these kinds of films will like be in the cinema for like an anniversary or like a special season or whatever. So that's kind of why these films, these kind of popular films that I haven't seen, I've not seen them because I kind of try and hold off because I value the cinema experience and feel as though I
Yeah,
will
definitely.
appreciate the films more if I see them for the first time in the cinema.
Definitely. And one more for me is The Master, which was Paul Thomas Anderson's film
Oh
that's
yeah,
had Philip Seymour Hoffman in. I keep listening to podcasts and they keep mentioning The Master, and I'm like, right, that needs to go on my list. I need to watch it, and just haven't got around to it.
yeah.
Um,
I haven't seen that either, so yeah, that's another one that I
so
need to
yeah,
get around to. Definitely.
amazing. So if you haven't read this list, I'm going to put the list link in the show notes so people can have a look if they want to. I mean, let us know your top 10 films of the past 25 years. Me and
Definitely
Alex have
do.
just spoken about ours. Pretty good. I think it's pretty solid. And other than a few ticks here or there that you probably take things out, I think it's a good representation of the last 25 years. We'd like to see more
Yeah.
animation. We'd like to see less Borat.
That is such a good manifesto. More animation, less Borat. Yep. Love it.
So, thank you very much for joining me and bringing this to us to talk about.
No, it's been a pleasure. Like I said at the beginning, I love lists, so I love kind of dismantling them and kind of discussing and kind of analyzing. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
And keep an eye out on our website because we may just have a look at doing our own.
Well, now that will be something.
There will be some curveballs in there, I imagine.
And no Borat, hopefully.
Well, we'll see. So, again, thank you very much for joining us. You can find more of our work at filmfocusonline.com. Find us on all socials at filmfocusonline. We are now on YouTube and on all podcast platforms. Again, thanks for joining us and goodbye.
Bye.